yun niya ilalagay nila yung parang architect, why would you put that title? Parang German is the only other country I know na ilalagay lahat ng title. Doctor, professor, ganyan.
Bakit naman, I was proud na ako lang yung cabinet secretary sa cabinet ni Pinoy na drop out. What's bad about that?
Organic intellectual kasi sa Sir Ronald.
Sabi nga ni Gary Granada sa kanyang kanta, di ba? Pamantasan ng puso.
Yan. Ikaw organic intellectual. Organic intellectual as
What does that mean?
it is sabihin, magaling ka mag-organize. Yun actually in Italian language. Organic, organized, they can go together. So when Gramsci said organic intellectual, he also meant intellectuals who can organize social forces.
Ang problema, namatay si Gramsci very lonely sa loob ng
Sir Ronald, I'm giving you a temple. You know, like, I'm saving you.
Pang mamatay sa kalungkutan inside the jail, di ba?
Pero tama yung sinabi, masyadong maraming emphasis sa credentials dito sa society natin. And I think na it should really be the ideas that count, no, rather than degrees. So,
But Walden, I want to ask you a question. Of course, I know I've still disappointed you for not doing my PhD in Princeton, but we'll fix that with an Hofsbridge degree. So, but ako lang yaman kasi Walden is, let's be honest, you're heads and above everyone else in terms of like scholarly impact international. And I'm not saying this to impress you. And it's not because you're a genius per se, although some would say you're a genius. It's because parang feeling ko, ang baba ng culture ng publications natin and all, di ba? What do you think is the problem? Why are we not a writing and reading country? As Ambet Ocampo, my colleague at Philippine Daily Inquirer, said, our national hero is Rizal and barely anyone reads Rizal. To be honest, I mean, like, did people reading latest Penguin Books version? Very few.
Or like our common friend, Dodong Remenso, former UP president. Wala siyang naisulat na libro. Diba? Until nung mamatay siya, diba?
Yet.
Oo, may compilation ng mga short writings niya na ginagawa o nilolodge ata sa February 8. Pero yung talagang libro, katulad ng mga tenured academician.
Or is he yung tenured?
Medyo, hindi rin siya napasulat ng isang quality.
Even Randy, di ba? Did Randy David write an academic book? Parang
wala rin.
I mean, I saw his anthology. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a compilation.
but both Dodong naman and Randy, are very
Prolific.
prolific in terms of their writings. No, kasi and they are engaged people.
They're very engaged.
So we shouldn't measure people by books, but rather by their interventions. And I think people like Randy and Dodong, I think it's their ideas and their political interventions that would be really.
Pero hindi naman sila yung nagka-question ng credentials namin. Ang nagka-question ng credentials, yung mga nag-feeling na napakataas na academy, tapos wala pang 500 Google citation, wala pang. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the mediocre ones.
Sabi nga nung
It's the mediocre ones who are like that.
Sabi nga nung isang common friend natin, Walden, no? Ang isang ideya na hindi nakasulat ay hindi isang ideya.
Sa ano siya? Hanash lang siya. Magtanggal na ako, medyo mahigit-titit na ang usapan.
Hindi ko na mapagkitin kung sino siya, pero.
So, no, but Walden, okay, first of all, yes, your intellectual legacy is not defined by what you write. Our problem is people who use certain credentials to kind of try to downplay the intellectual contributions and impact of those people who are every day doing their job. Like Ronald, every single day, kahit nasa anong sulok, he's doing 4 or 5 analyses. He's basically putting his health on the line, right? And then in your case, my goodness, you work so hard, and a lot of your books are, parang it's strictly speaking, parang interstices of activism and also intellectual academic work, right? So parang hindi ko maintindihan what's going on here. Like, is it a gatekeeping thing? Is it an insecurity thing? Because a lot of these critics so far is actually, sorry, but they're not relevant. Like, no one cares about them. They got Google citation na mataas, they don't have any social media output, they're not being interviewed, they have no policy impact whatsoever, and then ibabash nila yung mga katulad namin or at least making some little effort, etc. Okay, magpalamig na ako. Sir, do you get what I'm saying? I'm just being honest about it. Sobrang toxic. Mediocre na nga kayo, toxic pa kayo.
Haba ng premise mo para sa banatan sila. Parang pang-kwan niya pang PhD.
Hindi, dissertation niya.
Well,
Wait na tayo.
anyway, we can move ahead. But I think part of it is insecurity. But so that's my sense. Is there's an insecurity there, But I think the important thing is to understand that and not too much pay not too much attention to it.
Pero affected ka ba? Paano ako kasi I enjoy being a heckler. Making fun of people in power.
My problem, Ronald,
Wala akong pretension na maging intellectual. So,
my problem with Ronald is, thank God in my own case, I build my own thing, right? But I'm worried about the younger generation scholars. Like for instance, the other day I saw like some of the young graduates of certain place. Parang binabash ako online and I was like, what? I don't even know this. So ang gets ko is, feeling ko, yung mga iba, parang say, don't be a Haydarian. Parang ganon yung tinuturo sa mga next. Parang medyo toxic na yan, di ba? Instead of encouraging, be a better version of Haydarian. Or like, do what Haydarian does and then do this and that. So, parang napaka-toxic na. This is not good.
that will be constant eh. There will be a lot of people attacking and praising us.
This again, di ba? The other thing is, ang dami ko nang kilala, ayaw na pumasok sa academe kasi daw napaka-toxic. Ang baba nga ng bayad, medieval pa yung wars. As Kissinger said, right? Yeah, he went out of war. So, the problem with the academic world is the stakes are so low, but the fights are so vicious. No offense. But, like, maybe not in US. You thought in US, well, then maybe it's slightly better there. I don't know.
Kaya di ba okay yun? What doesn't destroy you will strengthen you intellectually.
I'm not sure I'm gonna be H on this. Medyo ibang intellectual line. I'm a different philosopher.
But sabi nga ng lolo ko, yung puno ng mangga, pag namupo nga, binabato talaga yan.
Yeah.
So, pag walang bumabato sa'yo, doon ka kabahan.
No, but then again, Ron, as I said, I thrive on disruption and bashing and all because I enjoy it. But I'm worried about the next generation scholars who are getting really turned off. Low productivity na yung mga ibang academic circles natin. Napaka-toxic, napaka-credentialist. Tapos they bash pa the few people are trying to do. So like, in short, Walden, how can we encourage a new generation of scholars to be a better version of me or to continue what you're doing? Ganun na lang messaging. Okay ka na, Sir Ronald?
Pwede.
At hindi maging Ronald Diamas.
Nietzsche. Sorry.
Ganun na lang, Walden.
Definitely. I mean, I fully agree that let's not bash people because of credentials. If we must bash them, we must bash them for their politics.
Or their stupidity.
Right. Or if you're gonna
like for instance, all those that people that going on to our friend, the late Edsel Lagman. We had a very difficult fight in Congress because the bishops and basically the so-called intellectuals of the church they were really up against us all the way, and so that's why coming back to your issue, that's the important thing is what people say rather than credentials.
And intentions, good intention. Sincerity matters. Sure. Can we talk about Edsel Lagman? I want to get your point of view because the last time we did essentially a memoriam to Dodong Numenso, which I think made people even more curious about a lot of folks that we have to know more about. And sana hindi lang yung hintayin pa natin for them to pass on. There's still a lot among us great people like Randy David probably we want to talk about too.
Yeah.
But going back to Edsel Lagman, can you first explain to people yung context ng debate niyo, the orange spiel, and what you feel are your frustrations with the Catholic Church back in the day? Kasi ngayon, the Catholic Church, because of, they feel they're being, sidelining politically, they see the rise of, other groups na Dutertismo and do I need to name this? So there's a sense that they have to re-engage the public. And they're reaching out. So I was in Decoil just the other month and we met folks from parishes, the bishop and others. Genuinely, they're asking, what should we do in order to be able to help good governance? But what you're telling us, Walden, is that back in the day when you were in Congress, you had not very encouraging experiences when it comes to them. And I remember during the RH bill, you would see people in church attacking Risa Ontiveros, parang team Buhay versus team Ganon. So, exactly. Like, I remember those days, and then I'm seeing what I'm saying now. My take is more optimistic. Maybe there's an evolution. We should ask our resident Catholic affairs analyst soon, live from Vatican. But Ikaw, Walden, can you tell us, honestly, what was the context of those debates in the Irish Bill? And where did Edsel Lagman get your respect? Because you had a recent article in tribute to Edsel.
Yeah.
Can you lay it out for people, please?
Well, talagang bilib ako kay Edsel kasi I was able to work with him in 3 congresses on several major bills. The one was the extension of agrarian reform law that, of course, Edsel was heading that up, but Risa, when she was in Congress, was also one of the main sponsors of that bill. The Marcos Victims Compensation Bill,
Right.
and this was in the 16th Congress that provided compensation from the seized Swiss accounts of Marcos. And Edsel played a very important role in that. But the most important one, ang sabi ko was the reproductive health bill.
RH Bill, yeah.
The RH bill. And
Can you, again, sorry for people who are not familiar, because this is like 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So what was the RH Bill? Was it the population control deal? Because the church and some of the critics tried to portray it in a certain... What are the facts of the case? What was the RH Bill fundamentally about? Before I go to our resident.
Kaya tinawag siya na Team Buhay at saka Team
Exactly. So can you clear the air, Walden? What was the RH Bill all about? How did it
the
come
RH
together?
bill was basically about women controlling their bodies. That was what it was.
So autonomy. Sovereignty.
Autonomy.
Yeah.
It's a human rights issue.
It's a human rights issue, and of course, it was the right of couples to do family planning.
Right.
So this was, in other countries, this is not even controversial. Indonesia and Thailand and Vietnam, all of those countries now ahead of us, saw that it was important to do some family planning in order to be able to develop new countries. Yeah.
Aside from their divorce laws.
Yeah, that's true. But here, we couldn't even get to first base for a long time. It was bottled up in the Committee on Population because of the church lobby. But, Edsel would dutifully introduce it at the beginning of every Congress. But it was only in 2011 that we were able to make the breakthrough. So it was, since 1999.
Protracted.
Protracted talaga, about 14 years before it was finally passed. And it was what really got me disappointed with the bishops was all of the really terrible arguments, which were false information, false news that they were bringing about. Like, for instance, their people in Congress would speak about using condoms would help spread AIDS.
Yeah, I remember that discussion.
Yeah.
It was called an abortion bill.
Yeah, then you encourage parang teenage pregnancy, may mga ganun din, immorality, mga ganun, yeah.
And that it was using a condom will be the first step on the slippery slope to abortion.
Yeah.
No, which was crazy, disconnected ideas.
Right.
But and then the church really defended these antiquated ideas.
Right.
And they tried to intimidate us. They showed up a few days before the second reading vote, which is this decisive vote. They were all in red robes with their Suketo style caps, and out of basically the message was that those who vote for the RH bill are going to
for all
suffer.
this evil,
Yeah, they're going to suffer politically, and they were, this was the message of that show of force of all the bishops coming in. But the important thing is the Congress of the Philippines, the representatives of the Filipino people, the majority of them, did not allow themselves to be intimidated by the antiquated ideas of the bishops.
Right.
And voted after 14 long years to pass the RH bill. And I was disappointed kasi, Ronald, that even some of our allies ng mga who are great on social justice issues,
Hesitate.
yeah, well, they would even tell us, we support you, but we cannot speak out. And we said, oh my God, ano ba ito? Is this bowing to Stalinist methods from the Vatican?
Commands,
You know,
that's all.
so it was that sort of, that battle really totally turned me off with the Catholic hierarchy.
Ronald, can I transition to you? Because my take is, I'm not questioning the facts of your argument. Ang tanong ko is that, isn't that a snapshot that may not capture the evolution of the church? Kasi this is still a transition from the Ratzinger to the Pope Francis one. Because if you look at Pope Francis by mid-2010s, his positioning on LGBT issue, even on diverse issue, medyo parang, I won't say progressive, but a little bit less traditionalist, if I can put it. And some people would even argue, I mean, people in US, like the MAGA people, are calling him a communist pope, even, right? So I think it would be unfair to say that the Catholic Church has not also evolved since then. And some would say, well, then again, you can disagree with me. Some would say that, in fact, the defeat in RHB and subsequent inability of the Catholic Church to shape the moral conversation during elections 2016 may have awakened them to the need to recalibrate. Now, ibang usapan if they have been awakened enough. But, Sir Ronald, am I being overly generous here? Because you know more than you deal with bishops. You were recently in Vatican also for the elevation of some of our good friends to
Not to defend the church.
Yeah,
but-
this is not apology.
because the church is dalawa yan eh. The
Right.
institutional church and the church.
Right,
It's a 2,000-year-old institution.
right. The oldest of
It's
its kind, yeah.
it survived dahil nga at particular moments they were able to rise above the tensions, the divisions within the institution, no? Pero at present it's grappling with the pre-modernity, with modernity and post-modernity, no? Kaya their position is not very envious, no? At being an institution with almost 2 billion members. You can imagine
And growing.
You can imagine the composition, the factions within. You have progressives, you have conservatives who wants to bring back the Latin Mass, etc. You have popes being killed in the Middle Ages, the Borgia popes, etc. And yet they survived that. Lately, you have a pope dying, which yung iba ang sinasabi, under mysterious circumstances. Si Pope John Paul I, na very open dito sa reproductive health, very open sa maraming mga issues na hindi traditionally accepted ng mainstream church. Kaya, ang tingin ko ay, for now, ang tawag nila kay Pope Francis, at least si Vice President Vance at si Trump, as the Antichrist. Ibig sabihin, or a communist. Talagang threaten sila doon sa kaunting mga reforms na gusto niyang gawin. Ha? This is not to overhaul the church. Mga kaunting reforms yan eh. Kaya nga, nung dineconstruct ko yung kanyang sermon, nung nandun ako last month, ang daming hugot lines na pwede mo sabihin na self-criticism niya about the church. No? Yung sinabi niya na Christ was going uphill sa Calvary while his apostles are going down. From my vantage point, parang criticism yun sa mga mga institutional leaders ng church, yung sinabi niya na inconsistencies and contradictions of the human heart. Parang naririnig ko si Morris West eh. Yung sinulat niya yung Shoes of the Fisherman, na sabi ni Morris West, why did the perfect God chose such an imperfect institution to
Carry the message.
carry his message to the world? So, yun yung contradiction ng institutional church. No? At marami pa siyang sinabi na tingin ko ay self-criticism. We have lost sight of essences. We are preoccupied with trivialities. Parang it's a criticism of the bureaucracy of the institution of the church. No? We have stopped walking, and the church is about walking. It's not about standing still. No? Ayun, clearly, malinaw sa akin. Only yung self-criticism niya.
To go with the times.
Tapos yung kanyang conclusion was about inclusivity. No? While others are pushing for exclusivity. Ito yung first non-European pope, di ba? At siya ay being attacked from all sides, not only outside the church, but even inside the church. So itong mga sinasabi niya na hindi naman niya directly ina-articulate, no? Ay tingin ko is a real criticism, self-criticism nung institutional church na pinamumunuan niya. At tingin ko, dahil mahina na siya, matanda na, is soon to retire, ay yung possible successor na
yeah.
pinipili niya will be in the middle of all these battles, all these contradictions, all these, tawag niya, inconsistencies of the human heart.
Can you say that the church is in a transition phase, if I can put it that way? No.
Yes, but as opposed to post-modernity, in our age of social media, etc., identity issues, ay maraming mga tao ay sinusukat yung simbahan based on a different set of rules, a different set of principles. At yan ay nakaka-threaten sa isang 2,000-year-old institutions. No, kaya nga, the next conclave will be a battle between these tendencies, between these mga factions, if I may call them, no? Kaya nasa isang napaka-defining moment yung simbahan. Sabi ko nga, the contradictions of pre-modernity, modernity, and post-modernity ay kinakaharap nila in such a short span of time. No? Kaya very decisive itong mga dinadaanan ngayon ng simbahan. Both the institution as well as the lay members of the church. No? Huwag mo kalimutan, almost 2 billion ang member yan. No?
Well, 2 billion is Christians in general, I think.
Yeah,
That includes non-Catholics.
the Catholic is about 1.5.
5.5. Oh, well, vast majority.
Yeah.
Well, then you want to call them this because obviously the Marxist tradition is like the opium of the masses and all of that. But the reality is that the religious groups are extremely influential, whether it's the evangelical groups in the United States or whether it's some of these non-Catholic denominations here in the Philippines who allegedly do bluff voting, recently had a peace rally. From a democratic progressive standpoint, what is your read of this, and where does the Catholic Church fit into that landscape?
Well, I
comparative?
think that, if many of these evangelical groups at this point have been intervening politically, I think a great part of the reason is that they have seen that the division between the temporal and spiritual power in the Philippines has long been
Slippery?
has long been violated by the Catholic Church. And so in many ways they had an example to base the fact their behavior of intervening politically, although our Constitution says that there is a clear separation between the temporal power and the spiritual power. And nowhere was this clearer than during the battle over the RH bill, whereby the church basically came on to the arena, of the temporal power to take care of the physical welfare of the country. And pushed what was basically something that was other countries were doing, which was family planning. Not controversial, and yet they stepped in and basically tried to kill this. Thank God that we had a Congress that stood up to the church. And you're definitely right that that was a defining moment for the church. That they realized, although some still haven't realized this, because you just seen that there are these 7 senators that withdrew their sponsorship of Risa Hontiveros' comprehensive sex education bill because, again, the Catholic Church and the hierarchy have been trying to stop it. To stop sex education, this is something that people really need to have at a time of rising teenage pregnancy, because talagang, it's very important for the government to be able to provide the facilities to tell people this is what happens in sex, rather than people realizing, oh my God, so this is what happened to me, now I'm pregnant.
Or contracted the disease.
Or contracted a disease.
Especially in a very hyper-sexualized digital era.
What could be wrong with such a bill that they would threaten to retaliate against the senators? But when I looked at the names of these people, like Jinggoy, and
Paragons of morality and family values.
first they say okay, then they withdraw. But I was quite disappointed that even
Sereno.
Lauren
Lauren
Regard,
yeah.
I'm not withdrew. Oh, okay. But, I came in kasi
Sige na.
but in any case, what I'm just trying to say is that I would disagree that they've learned their lesson.
The lessons, okay.
You know,
Kasi
kasi
more skeptical, yeah.
I mean, maging neutral na lang sila. Don't start trying to kill the comprehensive sex education bill. But there have been.
You're talking about Catholic Church, but is
That's,
does it
lalo
represent
na evangelicals yun. Lalo na the SAI, kasi yung sinasabing itong mga senators na ito ay based on fake news, based on disinformation. What they just have to do is check the bill. No? Parang si Presidente Bongbong, woke daw itong bill, marami daw mga detestable components.
Can I clarify?
Simple lang yun. Babasahin mo lang yung bill. Just, no? Or ipabasa mo sa secretary.
Wait, Sir Ronald. Ang sabi nila dun sa bill daw, meron parang, about masturbation for 0 to 4-year-old kids?
Yeah.
Tapos, yung isang former Chief Justice said, who's not Catholic, I think, evangelical. Sabi niya something like, baka ang mangyayari dyan, people are gonna use remote control, then put condom, and then people will be traumatized by remote control. Then they're gonna touch themselves in class. Like, that's South Park. Like, what the heck was that?
In fairness, yung Catholic Church was not up in arms katulad ng
that's what I'm saying. Well,
katulad ng RH.
Yeah, I felt kasi there's
Nandito yung mga Jesus is Lord, nandito yung
That's what I'm saying,
evangelical.
yeah.
Sila yung medyo vanguard dito sa
Exactly.
dito. In church, medyo parang hesitant, no? Especially with a leader like Cardinal Ambo. No, hindi sila masyadong katulad nung sa RH bill dati.
Yeah.
They toned down. That's what we're saying.
Sure, but if you read the Inquirer and all of that, it's priests who are writing in.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
They priest.
probably, but I'm just. In other words, I think that I'm quite skeptical
Pa rin. Yeah.
about this. So
Gusto ko lang bangitin
Please, Ronald.
banggit mo kanina yung opium of the people.
Yeah.
No? Actually, nung sinulat yan ni Karl Marx, meron siyang mas empathic na mga description. Ang sabi niya, the sigh of the oppressed. Your religion daw. The heart of a heartless world. Hindi lang siya naging popular, yung opium of the people na naging popular. Pero marami siyang mas empathic na description sa religion.
Even Nietzsche, right? Even Nietzsche said it anchors society.
God is dead, sabi niya.
If you read Gospel Zarathustra, history talks about that if you take away religion, then you're left with what next thing you have is fascism and nazism. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. Ang point ko lang is, I think people have to understand, we do have, I think, some different points of view in terms of, is the church evolving or has it evolved enough? And then the other thing is that ang dami ng ibang mga religious groups. I mean, well then, from a political sociology, because you're the tenured sociologist among three of us. But on a serious note, can you have a real democracy if religious groups who don't pay taxes, who are getting all of the advantages of having, can be so openly involved? I'm not talking about the Catholic Church per se, but we had the peace rally the other month and all of that. I mean, can you really have a real democracy if you have a situation like that, whereby each organized religious group essentially tries to flex their muscle once in a while?
Well, I think
or it's just an expression of a pluralistic democracy, to be fair.
No, I think that one of the things that I really, feel is the foundational principle of democracy is the separation of church and state. And I think that when that is threatened, then you will in fact have a situation, which could really lead to tremendous social strife.
Right.
Once religion invades the secular realm, as it is now doing in many places, including the United States.
Yes, yeah.
Then I think the possibility really of civil conflicts that become irreconcilable precisely because they begin to be seen as all or nothing conflicts that have been brought into the secular arena. Then I think that is a real danger at this point. That's why to come back to my original point,
Yep.
the lesson that many of these evangelical groups, or whatever you call them at this point, the bad lesson that the Catholic Church
Precedents,
hierarchy taught them was, in fact, that about intervention in the political arena, and nowhere was this most evident than during the RH bill conflict. Now, that's why, for me, that was an experience that I really made me very, very, how would you call it now, quite firm, in terms of my my attitudes towards the church. Not that I was a Catholic before.
Well, neo ka.
Yeah. But the important thing is what I'm just trying to say here is that very strong yung formation ko in terms of my current attitudes towards the church by my experience with the art.
Studying in the
Bill.
Yeah.
Pero meron nga mga very important theologians katulad ni Thomas Halleck, a Czech theologian and priest, na malaking influensya ngayon na dito sa mga debates within the church, no? Meron siyang magandang book, The Afternoon of the Church. No? Na pinapaliwanag niya yung context ng evangelization, a centerpiece of the Catholic Church. Na sinasabi niya na how can you have evangelization without enculturation? No? Evangelization is about convincing those who are unconvinced. And you cannot just impose your values, your parang ideology, your theology on those who are trying to convince. You have to understand their culture.
Right.
No? Kaya
Life world.
Kaya ang premise niya, ang kanyang proposal is inclusivity,
Right.
which is now a major debate within the Catholic Church. No? At kung hindi natin ito gagawin, itong enculturation, ay yung ating evangelization will be just an empty shell of what evangelization means. So, and this guy, this priest, this theologian is having such a wide influence in the church, especially dun sa mga non-European Catholic churches.
Right.
At tingin ko, even Pope Francis is listening or reading him. No? Dahil na the future of the church
Is in the global sum.
Yes.
Ang sarap talaga pag Ateneo at USC, tamabitas taga UP yung nagtatanong. I have two related questions on this. One is more local and one is more global. One is, and I felt this was a kind of an unorthodox interpretation. When Duterte was attacking the church, one interpretation was, he has the wrong intention, he's the wrong person, but you need assertion of the secular power by the Philippine president. Pinoy did it in a much more subtle democratic way. And I says one of the continuities between Pinoy and Duterte was,
And he was a better messenger.
is the assertion of the secular power. Okay, give unto Caesar what is his, right? Is that an over-generous reading of Duterte? Or at the very least, wasn't that a precedence for future Filipino presidents to also draw the line? I have the democratic mandate. Let me do my job, respect the separation of church and state. Because from Pinoy to Duterte, you saw a certain degree of continuity, at least on that point. Both of them pushed back against religious intervention. I know this has not been explored as much, but I remember this was one of the interesting discussions that came out of Duterte. No? That he's kind of like the brutal Borgia kind of prince, drawing the line and saying, Florence is Florentine.
I doubt if Duterte has any framework doon sa kanyang mga criticism or nung tinawag niyang stupid ang Diyos.
No,
At nung,
not that part.
At nung minura niya si Pope Francis,
But he supported the Archbishop.
that was about traffic. No, yun yung but also Pinoy also supported the RH bill, no? Medyo reluctant pa siya doon sa divorce bill. Pero sabi nga isa-isa lang, no? Pero yung RH bill ay nag-flourish during his watch. No, at very religious si Pinoy, unlike us. Unlike us, no? Very religious. Kaya ibang-iba siya kay Digong, no? Digong is just bad, no? At doon siya nanggagaling. It's not about
Digong pushed for divorce.
It's not about
Digong pushed for
because he was divorcee. He was a divorcee.
yeah, but he didn't have to. Again, I'm not trying. Again,
Pero at the same time,
are you being unfair to Duterte that maybe he indeed had some?
no, he's just evil, no? Nung bumunggo siya sa pinost na yung divorce, pero at the same time,
Balance mo.
biglaan siyang umatras. No? Biglaan siyang umatras. Parang pinost lang niya, tapos okay, atras na. Diba? So, he is the worst messenger.
False
No,
message,
yeah. At hindi siya nanggagaling sa isang framework about separation.
Hindi siya ideological.
About separation of church. It was just the moment na siguro may nakabulong sa kanya at sinabi niya ganito, nung may bubulong sa kanya ng iba, atras siya. Pero,
Ang sense ko lang is that precisely because of the church's overreach doon sa RH, that allowed
Gave an open,
people like Digong, who, as I agree, that he had no framework except what would the aggrandizement of power, and he would use anything to do that, including at that time when talagang people were quite upset with the church because it had opposed the DJA RH bill, no? So my sense is, that it was Digong at his most opportunistic, and I wouldn't lend any credence to the fact to any claim that he was acting out of a concern for the secular realm. But he was,